Why hello there, friends. As I discussed in my last video, Confessions of an Autistic Burnout, my self-image, what I have come to know and understand about myself, has changed a lot in the past year. That, coupled with the fact that up until now I've always had like a job, and so there's been a big part of my life that I've kind of held back off the internet, and now I don't really have that problem. There's been a lot of things that I feel like I should reintroduce myself, and you know what? What better, what easier way, what more simplistic way than the ABCs. So these are the ABCs of me. A, ADHD autistic. I've known that I was ADHD since I was about 14 or 15 years old. Unfortunately, back then the knowledge and understanding of ADHD was very different, but I only more recently found out that I was autistic. And for much of my life, I think I would have probably put A for alien because I've always felt a little bit different, not like in a not like all the other girls way, more like a I'm an alien in a human suit and I don't necessarily know if I belong here. And apparently that is a very common sentiment among autistic people. Neurodivergency is a big aspect of my life, and I think it's going to temper a lot of the content that I make and a lot of the ways that I approach things. Even if I do a video that's like a how-to video that isn't expressly how-to for ADHD people, I only follow steps that ADHD, or at least that this ADHD person can follow. Getting around people that were of similar neurotypes to me has been a tremendously eye-opening experience because for the first time in my life, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I'm an alien. These people understand. These people understand everything that I'm talking about. It's just been wonderful. B is going to be a surprise to no one who knows me well. Birds. We have 3 pet parrots. Our oldest, our African Grey Pongo, is 29. She's like a sister to me. We've had her since I was a child. She's a family bird, but I have 2 birds that are my own pets, and they are Kiki and Shivy. Kiki's a 10-year-old male Quaker parrot, and Shivy is a 20-year-old female Quaker parrot. They are honestly the joy of my life, and I love them immensely. Birds are also one of my special interests. I really love bird watching. I really love taking photos and videos of birds. I will do it endlessly. I would do it every day for the rest of my life if I could. I'm a bit obsessed. C is for crafting. I was really into arts and crafts when I was a kid, but at some point in time I just it wasn't practical, it wasn't gonna get me a job, I wasn't really that good at it, I loved it. I wasn't amazing at it. I really hate how many adults have been deceived by capitalism to believe that if you can't do something well, you shouldn't do it at all. Like if you can't do something well enough to be paid to do it, you shouldn't do it. No, that doesn't make any sense. Crafting and a lot of other creative outlets are an important form of self-expression and one that a lot of people are lacking in their lives. And too many people are hung up about always making something perfect or that looks like it was professionally made. And I think we've just gotten too far away from what the purpose of arts and crafts really were in the beginning, which was, you know, to have that sort of artistic expression and outlet. So I'm definitely going to be doing some craft content on my channel because I want to show people that you don't have to be amazing at crafts to do it, and you can start a craft later at life and it's still fine. The next one's going to be controversial. D is for drugs. I have a pretty strong standpoint on drugs, and it's not one that most people expect just looking at me. I am medically dependent on both cannabis and morphine. I've previously been really quiet about it because of stigmas, but I'm realizing now that that's exactly the reason why I have to talk about it. I have to admit, it's really weird just sitting back in conversations and hearing your friends just casting judgments against people for using substances, and it's like the only difference between these people and me is that my substances came from a doctor with a prescription. Regardless of what substance someone is on or where they get it from, most people that are on pain meds long-term are people like me that have a chronic illness who take them as directed and who are just trying to get by and make the world a little bit brighter and maybe have a job if possible. E is for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I was diagnosed about a decade ago with classical type. If you're unfamiliar, EDS is a genetic disorder that impacts your collagen. The collagen that my body creates is too stretchy. Rather than being like a rubber band consistency, it's more like chewing gum. It's all chewed up and left on the side of the road consistency. Unfortunately, because collagen makes up 90% of the soft tissue in your body, it impacts basically every part of soft tissue in my body. That means that I have an array of symptoms in addition to just pain impacting my body. My blood pools in my extremities because my veins are too stretchy, my digestive system is either too fast or too slow, and either way I don't get the nutrients I need, and I have a literal hole in my heart. I'm a mess. In addition to EDS, I have a lot of the other comorbidities like autism and ADHD, mast cell issues, dysautonomia, and all that jazz. I really want to do a video on dysautonomia one day because it's probably one of the least understood, especially by my doctors, symptoms of my conditions, and probably one of the things that impacts me the most prominently. F is for fashion. I used to think I hated fashion, and then I discovered fashion from before the 1920s, haute fashion, and tons of specialty fashion subgenres. Now I love fashion. I love aesthetics. I don't have one. In fact, I float between many. If there's one consistent thing in my life, it's that I don't like committing to one specific thing. I like options. I float between many different things, and I call my personal style Camelio Aesthetique, which is just a really pompous way of saying that I changed my aesthetic like a comedian, or like a chameleon. That was an interesting Freudian. Whew! I am funny. I do not take myself seriously. I think fashion is an incredibly powerful form of expression that a lot of people have lost touch with in the modern age, with mass-produced clothes and everybody being in a hurry. Dressing for yourself to evoke a specific sort of look or a mood or a feeling, it's very powerful. There's a reason that groups of individuals who are subjugated or oppressed are often forced to wear the same uniform. It takes away someone's personal power to strip them of their self-expression. I say that as a former Catholic school kid and retail worker who spent many years in uniform. And I think that is part of why I'm so into fashion now. G is for gaming. If you've been here since the beginning, you would know that this channel was originally a Sims YouTube channel. I love video games of all sorts though. Horizon Zero Dawn is probably my favorite. I'm very interested in accessibility in gaming as well, just because my body's failing and I need help sometimes. I'm not as physically capable as pressing the buttons super fast the way that I used to be, but I still love the storylines. Also, I've played a lot of tabletop games since Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and I love board games too, although I can't really do them right now, so maybe in the future. I used to play mobile games, but those are all very good at stealing my money, so I don't play them anymore. That said, Hungry Hearts is the best mobile game ever, and it's only like $3 for the whole game. H is for high maintenance, probably not in the way that you're expecting either. There's a really huge societal stigma, especially if you're AFAB, about being high maintenance. So long as someone else is perceiving you as high maintenance, it's not good. But being disabled, my body is high maintenance, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I am a bad person or less deserving of a person or anything like that. It just means that my health insurance is a fortune out of pocket. I pay hundreds of dollars a month on prescriptions, infusions, therapy. I have to watch what I eat very carefully, not sleep too much, not sleep too little, balance hydration and even body temperature because my body just sort of forgets to turn on the heat sometimes, and I'll be in a 78-degree room shivering because my core body temperature is only like 95.2. And there's always somebody in the comments whenever I say something that like this that is like,
well, clearly you did something to deserve that.
No. There's a very Calvinistic belief that bad things like disability and chronic illness only happen to bad people. No, they happen to many people. In fact, I would say most people who live a long life will end up with some form of chronic health issue or disability. And if for no other reason, people I think should be more cognizant of their attitudes about health because they're terrible. Interdependent living. This is going to be a hard one. This is a term that I've kind of coined to kind of describe my lifestyle philosophy and mentality surrounding family, both biological family and found family. I'm going to try and simplify it though. Many people in America are raised to be independent as a child as soon as possible, leave home at 18 or as soon as possible afterwards and get a job. Then suppress your needs as much as possible to try and get a partner because you don't want to look needy or greedy when you're trying to attract that partner. Then you start a family with that partner, spouse, 2.5 kids, pet or 3. While doing that, you still need to be as self-reliant as possible. And again, if you're the mom parent in this situation, you're probably not only self-reliant for yourself, you're probably also doing things for your spouse and for your kids too. So you need to be more independent than independent. Personally, I think independence is one of the most highly overvalued American things. Far too many people spend too much time practicing to survive on their own when most of their life is going to be spent around other people. It's not bad to need people. It's not bad to need things. When I first got sick and I was on medication, people were telling me, oh, don't take that medication. If you take that medication, you're gonna be on it for life. And it's like, okay, yeah, but if I do take this medication, my life will be a lot longer, you see, because if I don't take this medication, my life will be, you know? Society has given us these protections and these comforts, and yet there's this belief that you should be above this and you should eschew these creature comforts and these things and you should get on the grind and work harder. Only those who lack true threats to their well-being want to casually throw away those things in the name of proving yourself on your own. If you're gonna be living in a family structure, it's usually better that responsibilities are balanced, tasks given out based on ability or efficiency instead of a, it's your thing, therefore you clean it. Interdependent families may be biological or found, and there's less focus of emptying the nest of teenagers. At the same token, it's not so group-minded that individuals' needs are invalidated. And it's very communication-focused, especially given that, at least in my case, we have different neurotypes in my home. For juxtaposition, I really love putting together things that you wouldn't ordinarily think would go together. I don't feel constrained to have one style or aesthetic like I mentioned before. I also don't like assuming that things that people did in the past are worse just intrinsically because they happened in the past. Like, I don't believe that our ancestors were just idiots and they just roamed the plains just being dumb. Like, the things that worked for them for reasons. And whilst, yes, there are a lot of modern solutions to our problems, how many of these modern solutions to our problems actually solve a problem? And how many of them are just a company trying to get money from us? I really love juxtaposing modern technology with classical technology. I love being on my computer playing video games wearing like historical dresses. It just gives me a fucking giggle. Like, Marie Antoinette could never. K is for kindness, especially the radical kind. I feel like American society really pushes that personal responsibility thing. Again, back to the whole independence. If you're not succeeding, you're not trying enough. It doesn't have to do with any factors outside of it. And if there are factors outside of you that are holding you back, you should try harder. You should overcome. If you are a good person, then eventually good things and good money will come to you. And if you are not a good person, well, everyone will be able to tell because bad things will happen to you. None of that is true. None of that is remotely true. People do not ask to be born. They just come here. And it is my belief that the elements that you need to survive, food, water, shelter, even beyond that, comfort and art and beauty, those things are human needs that if society has the capability of providing it and doesn't provide it, it's like, why? What is the purpose of having civilization if we're not going to improve the stakes? Because here's the problem. When you have an unequal distribution of access to opportunities and things like that, you are ensuring that only the top upper echelons of people ever get to do any of the things that they want, to succeed at any of the things that are important to them. But also, you deprive the world of the genius of so many people, millions of people that could be solving so many world problems or developing new technologies or new music or new art and new design. All of these opportunities are just missed. Most Americans aren't living the American dream. They're living the American reality, working their ass off, paycheck to paycheck, to maybe get by if they are lucky. We are always quick to ask people, especially marginalized people, why they aren't trying harder, why they aren't trying to fight to get every little scrap that they can. In a supposed civilized, compassionate society, I ask the following: why is society forcing them to beg, borrow, and steal for the bare minimum? The belief that people will only contribute to society if they will starve to death otherwise it's frankly untrue. And it really shows a very pessimistic view of the species, to be quite frank. There are many ways to motivate people, and it turns out people do great work when they know that food and shelter are guaranteed at the end of the day. L is for learning. I believe that people should always be learning. Not always in the academic sense, because academia is inaccessible to so many, and because I have myriad problems with academia after both working in there and studying in there. There are many ways to learn, though, and some people cut them all off. Read a book, take a course online, teach yourself a hobby by trial and error, have a friend or stranger teach you something new. Or just do what learners of old did. Watch the world around you. Make hypotheses on what you think is going to happen. Chart what actually happens and then compare and learn from it. What you learn doesn't have to be important or practical. You don't have to be good at it or even retain the knowledge for very long. The act of exposing your brain to novel scenarios helps keep you from getting rooted and stuck. M is for ME/CFS. I have this and I still can't pronounce it. ME is myalgic encephalomyelitis. CFS is chronic fatigue syndrome. I can do that one. In my life, there have been several times when I've gotten a bad virus or a bad bacterial infection. I've gotten whooping cough and Lyme disease and some other random errata. Every time that happens, I have fatigue and other symptoms for sometimes years afterwards. And unlike other types of fatigue, I just can't sleep my way better. Unlike other types of fatigue, you can't gradually expose yourself to more exercise. In fact, that makes you worse. And in fact, doctors have made me worse by forcing me to do that, even after knowing that it doesn't work, just because they didn't know what else to do. You're seeing a considerable number of people that get coronavirus and have ME/CFS or similar symptoms or long COVID or whatever you want to call it afterwards. So I will probably talk about those things because I suspect there's going to be an increasing number of people that need to know about it. N is for NB, or non-binary. I identify as gender fluid, or because my autism impacts how I view gender in a way that may not be the same as how neurotypical people interpret gender, I also identify as autigender. In general, I prefer they, them, and they, fair pronouns. I don't really like being associated with like girly, super girly stuff. I tend to trend more on the masculine side, but I pop around. I wake up in the morning, I see what feels good. Even though I have long hair, I do feel, like I said, pretty masculine. I feel very disrespected when people who know that I'm non-binary treat me like a woman. I get a lot of dysphoria from it, so please don't. Thank you. O is for ornithography, bird photos and videos. You will see a lot of them in many of my videos. In fact, all of the just sort of like garden, sort of nature-y type video that you see during my videos is stuff that I took in my yard, usually, and sometimes around my yard. P is for pain. I first started experiencing symptoms of my chronic pain disorder in 2006. I didn't get diagnosed till 2012, so I had about 6 years of being told that I was crazy and it was all in my head and I was hysterical. And because of that, I have a lot of PTSD. Doctors gaslight you. It sucks. As I've mentioned in the drug section, this is something that I've had to remain quiet about for many years. And it's really time for me to share everything that I've learned from a decade of being in pain because it is a lot. Q is for Quaker parrots. Of our 3 birds, the 2 that are mine are Quaker parrots. It's funny because I never really intended to own Quaker parrots. They are a very loud, demanding species, and I was looking for a pet that was going to be great with my disability-ness. With my disability. Once I met Shibby, it was all over. She really changed my life in a huge way, and Kiki has too. Shibby was very, very sick when she came to me, and we did not think that she had but a couple months to live, and it's been several years now, and she's going strong, and she has just really demonstrated the will to live and being able to like adapt and overcome when life takes different things away from you because she's not as capable. She's had times when she was sick and she wasn't capable of doing as much, and she just found new ways of entertaining herself. It's been really critical to me as I have become sicker, you know? Kiki, he had lost an owner, she passed away, and that was at the beginning of the pandemic. He lived with one of the people at my vet's office while she was in hospice, and then after she passed away, and then he came to live with me. And he has been passed around with a couple of hands, probably more than we even know, and yet there's no bitterness, there's no, you know, he loves everybody. He just is very excited every day to just get up and take on the world, and he's just so energetic. R is for radical humanism. I am fascinated by M.N. Roy's writings on radical humanism. And honestly, his life is just like, it's just crazy. It's fascinating individual. He's really one of the most underrated philosophers, and I kind of attribute that to him not being like a white dude from the West. Regardless, one of the biggest tenets of humanism in general that really appeals to me is this. The state, science, technology, etc. are all means to an end, namely to enable individuals to flourish. They are not ends in themselves. They cannot be allowed to dominate human life. And I think that the state and technology at this point in time are really starting to begin to dominate human life, or well, they've been dominating human life, I guess, since the beginning. But it's getting really noticeable now. It's like getting to the point where you cannot ignore it now. S is for survivor. I'm a survivor of CSA, SA, and IPV. I want to keep this video somewhat lighter hearted, so I'm not really going to go into this too much, but there's definitely a video about grooming in the future, probably. T is for TikTok. TikTok has really been hugely influential to me, and not just in the like people follow me there sense. Completely ignore that. Even before that, and just in figuring out who I am and putting me in autism TikTok, which I hate how closed-minded the media is being about people that are finding out about mental disorders on TikTok. Like, I understand the worry that teenagers are getting convinced that, really? TikTok was influential in putting me amongst the other people who could relate to the same life experience that I could, and those people were autistic. TikTok is a very powerful tool, and I think a lot of people are afraid to consider the idea that TikTok may be better than a human at figuring out if somebody has a mental disorder, at least certain mental disorders, or at least people with different neurotypes use the app in a different way such that autism and ADHD stick out to it. TikTok is a powerful tool, and much like any powerful tool, it has tremendous potential. It can be used for good, and the more potential for good something has, the more that potential can swing around the other way and be bad potential. And I think in a lot of cases, the media only wants to look at the bad potential or the bad things that could come of it, and doesn't want to look at the potential that this has to connect people in communities who don't even realize that they're a part of the community yet. U is for underdog. I love a good underdog narrative, and I think honestly most Americans do. I don't think this is a novel thought when I say I think I see myself as an underdog in a lot of ways. I would love to see myself succeed. I think every American alive today has grown up with these underdog success stories, and many Americans do sort of frame themselves as an underdog in their minds, whether they actually be an underdog or not. And when these people aren't actually underdogs, you have this weird cognitive dissonance where they have to scramble to figure out any possible way that they are oppressed and are actually the underdog. And then you get a war on Christmas. V is for villain coded. If you're familiar with the concept of how a character could be queer-coded or black-coded, this is sort of the inverse philosophy. A powerful, oppressive part of society believes that queer people are villainous. They are going to believe that no matter what I do with my life. They put that judgment upon us regardless. It used to bother me, but now I just sort of embrace it. I really enjoy the alliteration of villain-coded vindicated, so I used to use that as like a saying on Twitter. I don't know, maybe it's stupid. W is for work, which I used to do. I have not been able to. Whilst I am upright right now, I can only be upright for a short period of time a day. Like I said, CFS. When I do exercise, I get compensatory fatigue. I think that's how you pronounce that word. Anyway, work. I spent almost 2 decades in computer/techie type work. Sales, support, QA, scripting, user experience and design, technical writing. I convinced myself that it was my dream job, and in reality, it broke me. I really want to do some videos like exposing the tech industry, because there's just like a lot of shit goes on that like people don't talk about because they want to still be able to get a job in the tech industry afterwards. I don't care. They don't want to hire a crippled queer bitch anyway. X is for xylography, the art of cutting wood. I really want to learn like wood cutting, like whittling, and also wood burning, pyrography. Oh, yes. I may do a video tracking my progress if I don't forget. We'll see. Y is for yard. My yard is pretty much my whole world, in like a way that most people don't understand. As I mentioned earlier, I've had like whooping cough and Lyme disease and stuff like that. It's because my immune system sucks. It really doesn't like killing bacteria and viruses that much. It likes kicking its own ass. It likes hurting me. My immune system is sort of the stop hitting yourself of the world. Aside from doctor's visits and the occasional rare and risky trip to the store, I've been stuck at home with my family since March 2020, and there is no immediate sign that that will ever change unless a lot of things change in the world that aren't showing a lot of signs of changing. Fortunately, I garden a lot through the spring and summer, and I love tracking all the various changes, big and small. And I'm really enjoying the opportunity of getting to do that through my videos and getting to share it with people. All of the bird, bug, and plant footage, like I said, it's stuff that I film, and I really appreciate knowing what you think of it. Finally, Z is for zebra, especially the EDS zebra. There's a saying in the medical school sphere: if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebra. The point being, if a doctor sees evidence that could be interpreted as a common condition, or it could be interpreted as an uncommon condition, the doctor should understand that it's more likely that they're going to see the common condition. And whilst I understand that's true, doctors are widely underdiagnosing. When most chronically ill people are taking like 5+ years to get diagnosed, those people aren't just not going to the doctors for 5 years. I was going to the doctors, like specialist after specialist after specialist. I went to like 9 rheumatologists. They told me there was nothing wrong with me. And then I finally went to a geneticist, and he's like, wow, you're like a textbook case of classical ADS. And I'm like, well, why is it taking 28 years of my life for y'all to figure that shit out, man? Just a thought. Anyhow, there are a lot of conditions that are widely underdiagnosed, and it's mostly because insurance companies don't want to pay for shit, and so they really influence doctors to not spend time with patients and to not believe that anything is wrong. So, but before I devolve into a rant that most of you don't actually care about, end this video. If you'd like to know more about anything else that I've discussed, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you watched this far, you must have liked something, so you better like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so very much, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.